In this video, we're going to talk about hatching, and what hatching is, and how to hatch objects. So I am going to draw a quick object. I'm going to use my rectangle here. And then I'm going to use hatch, which is this button here, or I can type in H for hatch. Now you can see when I select it, the object, I have now put a hatch into it. This is a solid hatch, so it's a fill of the object. So H for hatch, H spacebar. Now, if I want to then choose different settings for that, I don't know why, but they don't use S. You can see it's capitalized T, so T is to get to settings. And you can, when you're in settings, you can choose what hatch pattern you want. You can choose the color. You can choose the angle, the scale, all these different items. If you want it to be a selected object versus a pick point, and all these different things. So let me see. I am going to choose. Let's see. I will do Earth. You can see here's a little preview here. And so I'm going to click on it. And this is not exactly, when I zoom in, you can see it. But if I'm out here, it now looks solid. So if I wanted to have it print right, here I've selected the hatch. Over here, you can see it says scale is 1. Now, maybe the scale should really be 20. Now, at the scale of 20, that looks more like the pattern that I want it to be. If I keep increasing it, click it again, come over here, and I make it 100, then it makes it even bigger. And then in the opposite way, if I wanted to make it smaller, if the 1 was too much, if I did a 0.1, you can see it gets really tiny. I don't even know if I can zoom in that far. I do have to say the biggest thing is with hatches is be really careful when hatching. Always make sure your work is saved, because the problem is hatching, as it's doing right now, is it's really graphically intense, and you can easily crash AutoCAD. And you can see my computer's trying to render everything right now, and it's not liking it. So I'm going to delete that so I don't crash AutoCAD. So that's one thing. Also, if you accidentally select the wrong objects and it tries to hatch more than it's supposed to, then oftentimes that can cause your computer to freeze and cause issues. So hatching, just be cautious. So let's say I go back, I want to hatch. So typically, instead of going to the settings, right here are the different swaths. So let's say I wanted to do concrete. Concrete. Or let's say I'm going to do gravel. Or no, let's do grass. And then this time, instead of selecting the object, I'm going to pick points. So I'm going to just pick inside. I want everything inside this object. And I can adjust the scale. So up here is another, instead of here, I can do the scale, and let's say 20. So now here is my grass. So if I have like a lawn or something, then that's how I could hatch it. So the reason why I do pick points, let's say I only, I have this whole object, which I could do the select, but let's say I only want part of it hatched. So you can see if I select hatch and I do select the object, I'll change this to 20. it hatches the entire thing. But if I only want one side of it hatched, then if I pick point, it will do only the side that I pick. The problem also that you can get into, and where good drafting is, if I do not close it all the way, let's say I leave a gap, even if it's a very small gap down here, if I do then pick point, now it hatches everything because it's not a closed item. So it's very important that wherever you're hatching is a complete closed item. Next, so I'll show you with lines here. So this, I'm going to hatch this side, and you'll see is if I wanted to change the angle that these lines went, is I could come over here and on angle, I could change it to be, instead of 0 degrees, maybe I wanted it 90 degrees. So now it's going to change the direction of the hatch by 90 degrees. Or maybe I want it to be 5 degrees different, 10 degrees different, 25 degrees different. So you can see, so you can actually then change the hatch pattern to go whichever way you would like it to go. So hatches are very good because, you know, like we showed you, you can have predefined patterns. So let's say I wanted to do a brick pattern. Do not know what happened there. Let's try something else. Let's try the herringbone pattern. So on the herringbone pattern, I'm going to make it smaller. I'm going to make it 10. Make it 1. So now let's say I was doing a nice patio. Instead of drawing all this line work of the herringbone, is now I've used a single hatch to then do this paver herringbone. Or let's say I want to do gravel. Come here, show some gravel. So a lot of times these are also used in details, construction details. So if I'm doing gravel by a drain or I have earth, then we have these different hatch patterns. And then what I actually use for the most in both in irrigation, then I know landscape architects, is when we are doing area takeoff. So let's say we have a site and your client wants to know how much you know, a certain area is going to cost to put sod down. So let's say I do this nice design of this is their turf area. Hatch it. I can even hatch it with some grass here. So now this is their front yard. And then I know when I select it, if you come over here, you can see that it will tell you, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. That this is, what is that? 37,178 square feet. So I know that, let's say turf is $2 a square feet. Let's say $2.25 a square feet. And then multiply that by 337,178. So it's going to cost them for turf that big, $83,650 to put turf and irrigation in, let's say, for that amount of landscape. So a lot of times we need to provide cost takeoffs. In irrigation, we have to do water use calculations. So with that, when I select this, we have little buttons here that if I select, tells me how many square feet, and then if it's flat or slope, is then I can then use these takeoffs to then calculate the water use for each different plant material. So these are very helpful in determining what costs and landscape areas, and if you did, let's say, in a shrub bed, you had the area and you knew you needed 3 inches of mulch, then you could take, in theory, you could then take your area and then multiply that by then 3 inches, and then you could convert that into cubic feet that the contractor could then buy that at a supply store for. So again, a lot of things revolve around areas and area takeoffs. So it's one of the reasons why I really emphasize polylines, because we do a lot of tracing in the landscape industry. We trace our areas, find out what the landscape sizes or the hardscape sizes are. Then we hatch them to figure out what the areas are, and then we can come up with costs and provide calculations, so on and so forth. So that's a little bit of an overview of hatching. We could, one of the things with hatching is I can come in here, and if I change the polygon, because it's associative, which if I select it, you can see it says associative, then it moved with it. If I say no, then now when I move it, now when I move the boundary, it's not associated with it. So I like to have everything be associated. Right. So now it's back to being associated. And then what else? Another cool thing, let's say this accidentally gets, your polygon that you drew around gets deleted by accident, and all you have is the hatch here. If you right click on it, you can actually then generate a boundary, and now your boundary polyline is back, which it's not associated. So let me see. Should be able to associate it, hopefully. Won't let me. But if worst case, even if that happened, I could delete and then I could rehatch this. So I could come here, select the object, rehatch. Now I can move it. So there's always ways to get around. It makes your drafting faster and funner. So this is hatching. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks.